Today's lecture deals with the concept of elasticity. Elasticity in economics refers to the responsiveness, and responsiveness can be either of consumers or producers. We have 4 elements that we could measure in terms of elasticity. We could be looking at elasticity of supply, and that would be producers' reaction to a change in price, or we could be looking at the income elasticity, which would be the reaction of consumers to a change in income, or we could have cross elasticity, which refers to the change in the price of one good and the resulting change in the demand for a related good. Or we could have, and that's the main emphasis, price elasticity of demand, which means how strongly will consumers react to a change in price. The demand curve has an inverse relationship between price and quantity, and therefore we do know that when price goes up, quantity demanded is going to be going down, but elasticity will measure how much as a percentage will the quantity change when price changes by a certain percentage. Generally speaking, 1% change in price and a resulting change in quantity. When it comes to price elasticity, we could measure it on several levels. One will be the percentage change comparisons, which means we will relate the percentage change in price to the percentage change in quantity demanded. So let's say that price goes up by 50% and quantity demanded goes down by 10%. The reaction is not very strong, and therefore it is going to be an inelastic demand curve. If, on the other hand, your price changes by 1% and quantity demanded changes by more than 1%, let's say 10%, then you see that this is a very strong reaction. So percentage comparisons would be one way of evaluating whether the demand is elastic or inelastic. Another way would be to look at total revenue change, and that would be a situation where as price goes up, we will try and figure out whether the total revenue is going to be going up or down. Now, what is total revenue? Total revenue is going to be price times quantity, or how much money you will have received from the sale of a particular number of units. So here we said if your price increases and your total revenue goes down, then we know that we are losing, and therefore the demand must be elastic. By the same token, if your price increases and your total revenue goes up, then that is going to be an inelastic demand. And why does this happen? Well, it happens in a situation where consumers are not going to react very strongly to a change in price, so you are going to be making a lot of money on the hike in price, but you will be losing very few customers, so that as a net, you are going to have a positive result. So your total revenue is going to be going up. Now, to explain how these calculations are done, I have here 2 demand curves. And one looks like a very steep demand curve, but the steepness is not what is going to reflect the elasticity of that particular demand curve. Remember, we are looking at percentage change. So here on number 1, we have 2 points. One point is a price of $10 and a quantity of 4 units. And here you have $5 and a quantity of 5 units. So when the price falls from 10 to 5, you will see that quantity demanded is going to be going up from 4 to 5. So this is a very small percentage. What kind of a percentage are we looking at here? This is just a 20% change in quantity demanded, while price has been cut in half. So you could also do that step by step. So let's say that we are going to be reducing price. So when we had a price of $10 and a quantity of 4 units, then the total revenue at price equals to 10 was 10 times 4, or $40. While when the price fell to 5, total revenue at price is equal to $5. You are selling 5 units. I mean, you're selling at $5, but you're selling 5 units. So it will be 5 times 5, which is equal to 25. Obviously, you are better off with the higher price. You'd rather have a total revenue of 40 than a total revenue of 25. So let's see what happens. As the price falls from 10 to 5, you are going to be losing this area. Can you calculate that area right here? Well, this rectangle would be 5 times 4. Okay. So this 5 times 4 is equal to 20. So this is how much you are losing, yet you are going to be gaining 1 customer at $5 a piece. So you are going to have, let me see, 5 times 1, which is equal to 5. So you lost 20, you gained 5, so your net, as your price fell, net change is equal to 20 minus 5, or 15. 20 minus 5, which is equal to 15. Of course, if you were to increase price, then you would have just the opposite happening. This gain would have been your loss, because you will have lost 1 customer, but you will have gained $5 on all and every single one of the 4 units that you sold. So you will have gained 4, but you will have lost 5. Your net would have been a change, a positive change of 15. So what you can learn from here is that if your demand is inelastic, then to increase total revenue, you increase price. Okay, so if your demand is inelastic, if people really, really desperately need that good, then you're better off increasing your price, because you will lose very little, but you will gain a lot per each unit of those who remain, of those customers who remain. Now, when we're looking at here, you will see a 20% decrease in price, and the change in quantity will be from 2 to 5. So that's a much larger percentage change in quantity demanded than the percentage change in price. So here, what should you do for your total revenue? Again, total revenue, when price is equal to $10, it will be 10 times 2, or 20. Now, total revenue, when price is equal to $8, is going to be 8 times 5, which is equal to 40. So again, you're better off with a revenue, total revenue of $40 than of $20. And if you reduce your price from 10 to 8, this would have been your loss. And again, it would be 2 times 2, 2 times 2, that's 4. And your gain will be 8 times 3. Because you will have gained so many more customers. And as a result, your total revenue is going to be going up when your price is dropped. Another way of measuring elasticity is going to be through the elasticity coefficient. And that is a formula that we're going to use in order to calculate the degree to which your consumers have reacted to a change in price. So in order to calculate the elasticity coefficient, we are going to be comparing the percentage change in quantity, and we will divide that by percentage change in price. Now this is a very general calculation, general approach. If we want to be more specific, we would like to know how to calculate a percentage change in quantity and a percentage change in price. So one way to expand on that would be to say percentage change in quantity will be Q2 minus Q1, or the change in quantities, divided by Q1, the original quantity, and we will divide this by a similar relationship, P2 minus P1 divided by P1. So that is going to give us a number, a coefficient. As we are looking at the coefficient, we will try and figure out whether it is a number that is larger than 1 or smaller than 1. Now, what do we mean by smaller than 1? Well, keep in mind that the result is going to be a negative number because price and quantity are inversely related. So what do we mean by less than 1? Less than 1 is going to be a fraction. Okay, so if your elasticity coefficient is 0.5 or 1/2, it will imply that a 1% change in price is going to lead to 0.5% change in quantity demanded. So will that be elastic or inelastic? Well, if we compare the percentages, then we see that the quantity reacted much less than the change in price, and that would be an inelastic demand. Now, if your elasticity coefficient would be, for instance, a 5, now that is going to be equal to elastic. As you see, it's larger than 1. And that will mean that a 1% change in price will lead to a 5% change in quantity demanded, a very strong reaction. Okay, so now we have looked at several elements that are going to explain or qualify a particular demand as being elastic or inelastic. We looked at the percentage change comparisons, we looked at total revenue, we looked at the elasticity coefficient. Next, we're going to be looking at the type of characteristics a particular product, a good or a service have. So when it comes to characteristics, we will see that probably the most obvious measure would be whether that particular good is a necessity or a luxury. And so if you have a good for which the demand is highly inelastic, it's probably also a good that is a necessity, because if it's not something that you really need, you will react strongly to a change in price. So that would be one element. The second element would be what share of your income is going to be spent on that particular item. So the smaller the share of your income that goes for a particular good, the more inelastic that particular product is going to be. So inelastic if it is small. By the same token, if it is a cheap good, then it is going to also be, the demand for that good is also going to be more inelastic than the demand for an expensive item. Think of 10% change in the price of a gadget that sells for $5 and a 10% change in the price of a car that sells for $30,000. Even there, you will see that the dollar amount is much, much different. You also are going to be looking at the number of substitutes. So if a particular product has many substitutes, then the demand for that good is going to be more elastic. If the price of one of the substitutes goes up, then you will switch to something else similar. Let's say when it comes to soft drinks, you will be switching from one brand to another. Although for some of you, probably, the demand for a particular soft drink is highly inelastic. Some of you may never want to try Pepsi Cola as a substitute to Coca-Cola, or better yet, the generic form of cola from Safeway. Another element is how we define the particular product. Are we looking at a very specific product, or are we looking at a group? So, for instance, for which one of those will your demand be more inelastic? Your demand for croissant, your demand for bagels, your demand for white bread, or your demand for focaccia bread? Well, if you're looking at focaccia bread, you could say, well, there is a substitute for that. But when it comes to white bread, it kind of encompasses all of the others. So your demand for white bread is going to be much more inelastic than your demand for, let's say, focaccia. If focaccia doubles in price, you may be looking at other substitutes to see if these are going to be another alternative that you could use.